welcome. And tonight we're going to have, well, first and foremost, welcome everyone. Conversations with Friends is back. We're happy. We both, appreciate you guys that have missed us. We really, really, honestly, you guys appreciated our break. Sometimes you need a break just to reboot and get your bearings together, but we have some interesting shows planned for this season. And really, to be perfectly honest with you, I think the first couple seasons that we did, we scratched the surface on a lot of issues. And I look forward to this season because I think this season will challenge us. It will challenge our panel that we will eventually put together for certain shows. And tonight we got a great show, and we're going to kick this show off with something very interesting. And I think as the great co-host Melodic is, she said something prior to going live. This show talks about something culturally that is like a taboo in a lot of families that have this, that happens, and nobody wants to say nothing. Nobody knows what to say, so nobody says nothing, and it happens generation after generation after generation. So, Melodic, how you been on your staycation that we've had our hiatus?
Hi, you.
They,
I've
they,
been well. It was much needed.
yeah, they've missed us. We've missed them, and I'm quite sure you had actually brought this case to me a few months ago. The case of Ziyah Harris. You guys, um, for a lot of the information, you guys, it's very important that you guys look into this case. We're going to talk about the case, but we want you guys to really research the case and understand why we decided to talk about this and discuss it, because it is very sensitive, but it's paramount that we discuss it definitely in Black American culture. And sometimes we think that this stuff does not happen in Black American culture, or like I said, if it does, it's a taboo and nobody wants to address it because it involves family dysfunction, it involves family issues. But if you continue to allow it to go on, it becomes a tradition in your family. Where this is like the person doing it is like it's like a rite of passage, and it goes from generation to generation. So, Melodic, would you like to just explain to our audience about this young lady, Ziyah Harris?
Sure, Q. So this case is actually taking place right now in Detroit, Michigan. And Ziyah Harris has been, she's 13 years old in January of 2024. She's been missing since January 9th, 2024. The last time anyone ever saw her was when she got off of the school bus that day, and no one has seen her since then. Excuse me. She's assumed dead, unfortunately. But there were a lot of factors that led up to her disappearance. And I mean, the gruesome details of this young lady's short life are unbelievable. We're going to talk about the person charged with her murder because the police consider it a homicide, even though they have not found a body. The person charged with her murder was someone close to the family. And there were so many adults involved in this young woman's life who failed her. It is absolutely despicable and unbelievable, some of the details of this case. The person charged with her murder, his name is Jarvis Butts. He's 42 years old. He's a registered sex offender, and he is a convicted sex offender.
So first and foremost, one of the things that we want to discuss is, okay, when you have somebody who is a family member or close to the family member convicted of this type of crime, um, and you know that they've committed crimes against the little people, from just a protection standpoint of the family, there should be some form of protection. Never left alone with the kids, because we understand that family's family and nobody wants to ostracize their family. But when myself and Melodic say that the system failed her, first the family failed her. And the reason why we believe the family failed her, and anybody that knows anything about this case would agree, is because he was a registered SEX offender, because he, prior to this young girl getting missing and then not finding the body, he was, CPS was involved because he touched her. So she was already a prior victim. I mean, when you read some of the things in the case, it is actually sad. It is heartbreaking because unfortunately her family basically just had her there for slaughter. They served her up. And I know it may seem harsh that I'm using those type of words, but it's the truth. They served her up for Mr. Butts to take advantage of her. CPS was involved. CPS was involved. How was he allowed to stay in the home? How was he allowed to be around the home when not only was he convicted and registered, which when you register in some states where Megan law is so intense, you can't even have social media. You can't even be around with kids. So not only was he around kids, he had access to his victim.
Indeed. And when you think about it, I'd just like to also bring up some of the other cases that he's been involved in, and other victims who have accused him who have either accused him or he's been convicted of molesting these other young women. He was accused and is actually charged with molesting and raping a 8-year-old, a 4-year-old who contracted chlamydia from him. There's been previous testimony in other cases where a 20-year-old gave her rendition of his abuse. And then there's also another 13-year-old who has testified about his previous abuse. So this man has had a serious history of these offenses. Not to mention the fact that there were also 5 CPS cases. And all of this occurred from 2015 on. There were 5 other CPS cases since 2015 where he's been accused of this type of behavior. So there's a pattern. And the family was well aware of it. Excuse me. He was the boyfriend of Ziyah's aunt, and she has 2 children with him. And it seems that when her relationship started with him, she was also a minor. So it's also being said by one of Ziyah's aunts that this was a cultural and generational thing that transpired in the grandmother's house, where her female daughters were served up for predators in the past. So this is there's a pattern there as well. It's really unfortunate.
So I know that this type of topic, this type of show, could be very somber, very sad, but know that this type of show, unfortunately, this type of case is not always a one-off. This type of stuff, unfortunately, is prevalent. It doesn't always have the sad, tragic ending that it has. But sometimes this type of serving up it's like family business. where
Here
they,
state.
they might get served up for older men, short of basically running a loose brothel. It's unfortunate that this happens, but it happens. And when you talk about the system failing Ziyah, you have to talk about, like we said, not only her family, but how did the red flags get missing by CPS? How did the cops know not to do anything by not saying it wasn't enough information? I mean, usually, I know it's enough people that have to register in this country that usually when somebody even is in your neighborhood, there are common citizens that go around and literally will make them feel uncomfortable by living in your area, or being around a school, being around our little people. And for this to happen, like we said, she was served up, and it's tragic and it's sad. And this is what we mean, or some of the people mean when they talk about the word and how they say defund the police. Police don't have the resources to be able to really understand what could be going on that they don't see. There's sometimes police are just there to solve and to prevent crime. But the reality is that if you would have had some trained officers to be able to pick up on the red flags, we probably wouldn't be talking about this.
Well, Q, I want to add this.
Better than the pound of cure.
I would like to add this. So it wasn't just the police that failed this young lady, and the failure started much sooner than that. One, by the family members, like you said, by serving her up. That's first and foremost. And she went missing on January 9th, 2024. On January 10th, the school system listed her as absent, and they actually started their own investigation. However, they weren't, the little girl didn't turn up. However, the police were not brought into this case until February 14th, 2024. So it was over 2020, right? Yes, over 30 days before they even started an investigation or contacted the police reporting the young lady missing. And it seems that no one was concerned about the little girl being missing in regards to her aunt or her grandmother, who actually had custody of her. Her mom, who was an absent parent for whatever reasons, I believe the mom has some issues as well. That's why the other family members had custody of the young lady, was the one who actually initiated the calls looking for the young lady, because she would occasionally, come and visit her daughter, and she wasn't there. And she said that she asked, the grandmom, like, hey, what do you mean you don't know where she is? Because anybody called the cops, etc. So unfortunately, there were a lot of adults in this young lady's life that failed her, in addition to the system failing her. The school failed her. CPS failed her. Excuse me. And the police officers actually have been investigating the case, but it was pretty much a cold case until it was, more publicized. There were her school ID was found on another side of town by a woman who said that she stepped over the ID, which was face down, for a good 2 weeks before she finally decided to pick it up. And when she picked it up, she recognized that it was the young lady that was being reported on the news. There has been forensic evidence that has been found, a hoodie that had blood stains on the hoodie. So I doubt very seriously that they will find this young lady alive.
So for the sake of everybody that's watching the show, right? One of the things that Melodic and myself, we've done conversations like this plenty of times. And when you do the research on these type of cases, 9 times out of a SEX, violence, any type of stuff like this, usually, based off the data, it's someone in the family first. So For this type of negligence to happen from the family and or police and the school and the system, it's crazy. Because soon as the young lady got missing, first of all, let's talk about prior to when the accusations first happened the first time. Him being registered, her being a victim, them looking at just a mere accusation by him being registered, that alone, those red flags should have flared up and an investigation should have been underway. A thorough investigation where CPS should have been in the home, should have temporarily took the children out of that home if he's still there, and if not, have him have a temporary restraining order where he can't go or be around those kids and specifically her or any other children. So for this failure of the system in this case, it's really tragic. And before we even get to Mr. Butts and what's going to happen to him, this is a system, this type of breakdown in the system, people should lose their job for. Minimum, people should lose their job. Minimum, the family, somebody who did not know what was going on, has every right to sue them for negligence in this matter. Because there are so many, like Melodic explained, so many red flags that we see prior to the young lady getting missing. How could y'all not know that this was going to happen? This was a victim of a perpetrator being able to have access to his actual victim. So as soon as the case was made, it's an open case. Yeah, like Melodic said, it's a cold case, but it's still open. So where was the follow-up? Where was the oversight? Where was the supervisors on both parts, even with the police, even with the school? Where's the supervisor? What was the principal? Most schools nowadays have human resources that work with in hand with CPS.
Truancy, right?
Yeah. Well, like what happened? What was the breakdown? Are we that negligent when it comes to our kids going to school that usually when they miss days like this over and over, it's the norm? And that's probably a whole nother show that we'll probably end up addressing is our terrible education system in this country. Because of the negligence, because like this should not have happened. And I know we always say hindsight is 2020, but you guys, this shouldn't happen. And it's really tragic.
It really is. So I just want to point out the fact that this young lady had an inappropriate relationship with this grown man. There was a clip of, the pretrial indictment proceedings, etc. And they were actually reading text messages between this young lady and this man and Q. Oh, it was absolutely gut-wrenching. The explicit nature of the conversation, the explicit photos going back and forth between this 13-year-old. And I also like to note that they're saying that they documented the abuse started back in 2022. So she was 11 years old at that time. The abuse took place at his mechanic shop, and it took place in the home that she lived in the aunt's home. And there were instances where the aunt was home, many instances where the aunt was home, and this abuse would take place in various parts of the house. And it was so difficult to listen to the text messages being read in court. It was gut-wrenching, to say the least.
And then I had made just some key points is we need to ask ourselves, does CPS need to be more involved? I know, how we were raised, it was always your mother or father would tell you, or both would tell you, don't embarrass us when you leave this house. So even when you went to school and you may have gotten in trouble, like I did in school, got in a lot of trouble, you got dealt with when you got home because you put people in your home business. And, you know, a lot of people will use that same premise how we were raised to do their business now. And CPS, there's no reason why they should not have been more involved with this investigation, have more authority where CPS should have been able to look at school records. They should have been able to get her to a medical physician through school. Like even the accusations, how did we get past that? When we talk about the case, to be perfectly honest with you, I know we laugh and we talk about certain things. This is a classic case. How did we get here? Because we should not have gotten here. Worst case scenario, which should be the accusations, he got arrested. Now we're here. We're past the accusations being neglected, tied up in bureaucracy to here. Here where so many red flags were just ran through. And we talk about, I saw red flags, I had to back away. Man, red flags, they was running through the red flags. They hit the gas pedal to go through the red flags. And it's really, really unfortunate. So, like you said earlier, everybody's responsible. Everybody did this young girl a disservice. And they served her.
Indeed. I would also like to note that it seems that the young lady was pregnant. And this was probably the catalyst for the murder, because that was cold hard proof. As they were going through the text messages, they did implicate that the young lady believed she was pregnant, and and then she actually was pregnant according to the text messages, and the aunt was aware of the abuse, and the grandmother was aware of the abuse. It seems like the young lady and a friend of hers were sent up to the mechanic shop with this sex offender on a pretty regular basis, and that's where some of the assaults took place as well. Because let's call it what it is. It's absolutely, it was assault. So yeah, it's unfortunate, Q. I really wish that our community would band together more when they know of situations like this going on, because there have also been other people implicated. One of his coworkers is believed to have hidden evidence of, these crimes, etc. The aunt, etc. So it's really unfortunate because there were so many people, so many outside people close to the family, or just knew of his behavior, his patterns, and no one reached out. No one advocated for this young lady. This could have totally been avoided if this young lady had someone that cared about her. If like you said, if the school system would have seen the fact that the young lady was possibly pregnant and no one picked up on that. Yeah.
One of the key issues that we want to talk about with this case is in families. Unfortunately, in families, this is also common, where it's the uncle, the boyfriend, the cousin, the male figure, or even in some rare cases, it may be the aunt or the babysitter. And for some reason, nobody appears to want to address it to the point where you get the child or the little person some type of help, assistance, whatever. And whatever happens to the perpetrator happens to the perpetrator, because that's a responsibility as an adult, is that you know that little people are little people and they deserve to be protected at all costs. One of the things that I noticed in this case, possibly, is because he was a mechanic. He had a shop. 9 times 10, he was the breadwinner. He was the one making the money. And the aunt did not want to mess up her meal ticket on that. Not saying in all cases, you guys, but just in some cases, you'll see where, even movies that they've showed this, you hear about, well, you ain't gonna mess up my money. I don't care what you do. I remember Precious. She was had resentment towards her own daughter because her own daughter situation.
Right.
I mean, and that was a movie based off of real experiences. It wasn't based off a true story, but real experiences that Lee Daniels was able to put life in his art. And the fact of the matter is that Precious was a very emotional movie for a lot of us. And, Monique did a great job. But let's talk about the story and the real people that this happens to and how it impacts them and what we need to do better as people, as family members to each other, as loved ones to protect. We have an obligation to protect our young ones. And all too times, that is not the case. So in this case, when we see those red flags, and we know that very rare, we know kids lie, but even if they lie, take their lie serious until otherwise.
Exactly. Let's talk about some of the other contributing factors to just this type of abuse. Let's talk about the disproportionate victimization, the sex abuse prevalence in excuse me, the African American community, poverty and the economic hardship, like you said, that can be a contributing factor as well. Limited access to care, where sometimes a pediatrician can pick up on this type of abuse if you're not going to the doctor regularly because you don't have that coverage, or this is just not something that your family does. Who's going to pick up on this type of abuse? This can be hidden pretty easily. Excuse me. Conditioning of your children not to report things dysfunction that's going on inside of the family.
Because you don't want to get in trouble.
Exactly.
You do that so many times where a child will see some type of trauma going on in the home, whether it's mental abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, monetary abuse, hygienic abuse, where they don't want to tell somebody out of fear of getting in trouble.
Exactly. Social and community factors, where people just don't want to step into others' family business. So they know that something is not right, but they tend to back off.
And I'm gonna use a fictional name. I'm gonna use a fictional name for the grandmother. A lot of people in the community may have been knowing what's going on at Miss Hattie's house.
Indeed.
This is what goes on.
Let's also talk about the legacy of historical trauma on our culture involving sex violence. There's a stigma attached to it. Silence is often a result of it because many people don't trust the system because the system has not been kind to them, and it has not. They haven't taken care of the individuals who caused the trauma. So why should I say anything? Why should I make it public news for everyone to know what happened when nothing's going to be done about it in my favor anyway. So there's so many contributing factors too.
The interesting thing, like when you bring it up about why this is so prevalent, is that we believe that not only is it a problem in the Black American community, but this is a major societal issue. I personally believe that we're at pandemic stage when it comes to this. This has been prevalent. What's going on? Uh, we see a bunch of crazy trafficking. What's going on? And a lot of it is thrown under the rug. A lot of it is not being talked about. A lot of people in power, prestige, is able to run around with carte blanche when even a mere accusation and or proof is out there. So when we bring this up, that yes, we want to learn from Ziyah Harris's case, but we also want to know how uncommon and common this case is. We have a major issue going on in our society. A lot of people that I know, I'll be honest, their first experience was not a pleasant one. Their first experience was not something that they willingly participated in or understood what they were doing. So this is very important, and this is something that, it's taboo. We can't talk about that. We could talk about anything else. We could talk about some of the craziness, but why shouldn't we be able to talk about this? We talk about all this other stuff in our schools, definitely when I'm speaking for our little people, but why we can't talk about the natural way certain things are supposed to happen. Majority of people, whether they're inner city people and people in urban communities, their maturation process gets taken off course, either from this or from some other factors that may go on. And we're just talking about this for the sake of the show. But when you really think about it, when you look into certain behaviors of people, even this gentleman here, I could guarantee that you can look in his background and see that something happened. Not saying he's a victim here. He's not a victim. He's not a victim here. But 9 out of 10, if they look in his background, something was taken off course. So I believe one of the solutions is just being able to talk freely about it. You guys in the chat, I'll just tell you, one of the things that even talking about this type of stuff, even online, is that they will block your conversation if you start conversating about this type of stuff, which is crazy when you think about what we all are allowed to say. As my partner would say, these internet streets. But when you start talking about this subject, they'll block your whole video.
And it's so unfortunate, Q, because it seems like we're going to have a huge portion of the society who experience this trauma and will probably be stuck in this trauma at the age where the trauma occurred, and we'll have a bunch of adults, suffering with arrested development. Unfortunate.
Yeah, one of the conversations I had recently was about arrested development, having emotional maturity, and one of the things that you want to do is when we discuss this and understand some of the symptoms, red flags, and or causes, is when we want to know why people are not emotionally mature or able to have a functional relationship. And when I say relationship, I don't mean a relationship of mate. I'm talking about a relationship with your fellow man in society, where you can go to work or go to school and function in society without you being different than the norm in society. But because we're not able to talk about this and because we're not able to address it, you have, like Melodic said, you have a large portion of adults, who are running around with arrested development, who they look like they may be in their 40s and 50s, but the reality is they may be 13 and 14 years old. They don't know how to have engaging conversations. They don't know how to have um, conversations where things may not go their way. So much so that the phrase agree to disagree is more famous than just disagreeing because they don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to critical think. They don't know how to look at information and look at the information and being able to assess it and understand that, their reality does not always coincide with social media or the world reality, or that their life is not a video that they may be playing. So it's very important that we hope, Melodic and myself, we hope that this conversation, those who choose to watch, and we appreciate you, this conversation starts in your home. And being able to talk about it, being able to have conversations in your home with your friends, because everybody's hustling, everybody's trying to survive, but this is outside of financial. This is important that you have some type of emotional ties to your family members and being able to have a conversation at the least about this, and definitely making our younger people feel comfortable with talking.
Sure. One of the goals of this particular episode, Q, for me, is we need to protect the kids. Kids are not able to protect themselves, and the adults need to step up and protect the kids. We need to protect the kids.
I have two friends that work for CPS. It's called Division of Youth Family Services in New Jersey. The acronym is DIFUS. And I say because it's like it's interesting every time that we do have a conversation with one of them, and he will bring it up. There's so many cases out there. It is pandemic phase, you guys. A lot of people have cases that are open that never been closed. They're overwhelmed. They just can't get to it. We need people, I believe, we need people that's in that field. And I understand for HIPAA and privacy issues, you can't talk about certain things. But I think that we need to overhaul how we're educated of some of the signs, some of the red flags, some of the things that we need to see. Because like we said, when you see the red flags and you look at the data and the statistics, 9 times out of 10, the abuser is in the home. Just be mindful. This young man, he came back for his victim. This should never have happened. Right. Whatsoever. So we don't want to be too somber. We know that this kind of conversation will change your mood, change your outlook. But Melodic and myself, we wanted to start this season off with getting people to get serious. We're going to have time where we're going to have some funny shows and play. And we will probably, Melodic and myself are both TV watchers when we have time. So we'll sneak in some reviews in there. We had some fun. I actually saw a movie the other day, and we'll probably do a review. I was so pleasantly surprised, you guys, that it didn't make no sense. I'm shocked how good it was and how much I liked it. I'm very, very critical of shows, but this one, I must admit, he knocked it out the park.
Okay.
Any final thoughts, ma'am?
Jury selection starts October 6th. I hate to say it, but I'm excited of the thought that this young lady may receive justice. I only pray that her body will be found and she can be laid to rest in the proper manner.
With that, remember to like, share, subscribe. Listen, you guys, we got a lot of stuff going on this year, man. We got a lot of, I believe we're going to do a lot more shows this season, probably than we ever did. I'm looking forward. This is Melodic, from Melodic and myself. This is our season. We love the winter time. We love this fall season. You could do a lot. You do a lot in your home. So we look forward to this season. And don't be afraid to share some thoughts and suggestions on what you would want us to talk about. And if anybody's watching, if you're willing to come up and be on the panel for anything that we want to discuss, just let us know in the comments and let us know what you would like to discuss, and let us know if you would like to be on the panel with us and really start addressing or start having conversations. Like Melodic said, this is conversations with friends. So we're just having a conversation. So with that, everybody have a good night. Take care.